I'm Jack,
And I'm Brenden,
and we're coming to you from beyond the terrarium.
where DIY meets naturalistic reptile.
Enjoy. All right, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Terrarium. This is episode number 8. And honestly, Brenden probably should have done this introduction because he's got the new microphone and headset. Looking very professional over there, my friend.
I'm trying. I am trying. It costs a lot of money, man. So hopefully it looks and sounds okay.
Yeah, it looks good. It sounds good. You sound like a real radio show host. Welcome back to K104.7.
Yeah, right.
Over there. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is just going to be me and Brenden this week. We're trying to do this every other week, pretty much. Try to get a guest on and then have an episode just the two of us, so we can debrief on all the happenings, all of our projects, talk about a subject that we just want to really dive into the two of us. And so that's what we're going to do this week. I think we've got some good topics that we want to go through, and should be a good episode. So I'm excited. But with that being said, every episode, Brenden, how are the cat gecko eggs?
They are the same they were last week.
The same they were.
They're looking nice and plump.
Nothing bad, which is huge.
We are almost, what is today? The 11th. So they were laid the 22nd of February. So we're almost 2 months in.
Wow.
Yeah, we're almost 60 days, man.
And they hatch at what again?
From what I read, 120 days. So we may possibly be like halfway through.
That's huge, though. This is longer than they've lasted before, right?
Oh yeah, double. Yeah.
Wow.
And she's looking thick again. So hopefully we get more. And then I paired another, my other female. I put a different male in with her like a week ago. So I'm hoping those two go, and then I have another female who should be ready to go by like later this year, early next year. So hopefully 3 females next year, maybe. I'm trying to get an army of these things, man. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Brenden played a dirty trick on us the other day, and he was showing these eggs via through a group chat video call, and everyone thought that they were new eggs.
Yeah,
we really got going there for a second, but they were not.
I wish they were, but
soon enough.
Yeah, soon enough. I'll get them going. I have a lot of people who's been hitting me up wanting babies and stuff, but unfortunately for them, I'm keeping the first dozen probably. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is.
You got to. You have to.
I got to build the army here first before I start letting them go, you know?
Absolutely. I also have to show this to the people because I added the sticker here to the water bottle, so super stoked on that.
Oh, I should have grabbed the slap stickers because we have those now.
Yeah, well, I'm going to remove both of us from the stage really quick and then bring us back on. But the background here is the slap sticker. Yeah. So if you want a slap sticker, Venmo Brenden $5 and send him all your shipping information so he can send you out one. Yep. Or if you're in the local Illinois area or the South Carolina area and you want us to bring it to you, meet up with us, whatever, we can do that too.
Yeah, if you're in the St. Louis, within I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes of St. Louis, hit me up.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna remove both of us really quick and then we can come back in.
Good.
All right. So that was it. So if you want it, hit Brenden up and he'll get that sent out to you guys.
Yeah, and there's only, we did 50 for the first run. So, and they're actually selling faster than I thought they would, to be honest. I think we're 10 down already. So,
yeah, selling like hotcakes out there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. Love the support.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate that. There was a lot of good feedback on the Facebook posts and the stories from you guys wanting them. So, really appreciate that. I think those stickers came out really cool. It's a nice job with those, Brenden.
Yeah.
And I think, as we go, we'll figure out some new stuff. I was inspired a lot by this hat here. Shout out Flippin' Tin, which Brendan's got on in the background. They're actually recording tonight live. So if you guys haven't checked out Flippin' Tin, please do. Jake and Sky are some of our really good buddies, and they do an awesome show, live show where you can actually, chime in and tell them your thoughts and everything. So definitely recommend you checking it out. But I just got this hat from them, Flippin' Tin FT flat bill hat. I love it. These are my favorite style hats. So shout out to Jake for bringing me that when I was out herping with him last weekend. So,
which we're going to talk about tonight.
Yes, we will absolutely go fully into that.
I want to hear all the goodies, man.
Yeah, man. Tons of stories from that. Tons of stories. So, but I think first, Brenden, we should talk about some renovations that went on over there. Major.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, last weekend was very rough on my back, that's for sure. So, I think I posted the pictures on my Instagram, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what I did yesterday, let alone last weekend. But I built the gecko room just about, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, I guess it's been now. And the goal was always to not use metal racks, but obviously I had to start somewhere. So I bought the metal racks, which are just, I don't like them, man. They're kind of shit in my opinion. The floor is not perfectly level, so they're kind of wobbly, and you got to adjust the legs and fucking yada, yada, yada. And you can't fit many cages on a rack. So I took some inspiration from MD Fish Tanks on YouTube, which I wish I could remember his name, but I don't know it. Awesome channel if you're into fish and that kind of aquascaping world. He's definitely a good one to go watch. But he built these like cinder block 2x4 plywood shelving units that are like very industrial looking, very cool. He did those for like his grow out fish tanks and stuff. So I just kind of took that idea and did it for the gecko cages, and I think it turned out pretty damn sweet.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work though, man. It was like 2 days worth of just hauling cinder blocks down to my basement, but
yeah, I can't imagine that was fun, and I'm sure that hurt your hands too. Like, how did your hands come out from that?
So I wore gloves. I actually was smart about that, but it did tear my arms up pretty good. So it was like loading the cinder blocks from Home Depot onto the cart into my truck, out of my truck to my backyard, from my backyard to my basement, from my basement to the gecko room. So 30 cinder blocks, that whole, yeah, it was a fun time. But it came out great. I can't complain.
Yeah.
And it was cheap.
I'm going to try to show here the original version and then your version as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Cinder blocks are great. I use them outside for my one of my turtle ponds to elevate the filter, and
yeah,
better, but they suck to carry down.
Yeah, so they use the thinner ones.
Mm-hmm.
My Home Depot didn't have those in stock, which is why I went with the actual cinder blocks. I like those better; they look better. But yeah, my Home Depot was out of stock at the time, so I just bought the big 8x8x16 cinder blocks.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it looks good, man. I love it.
Yeah, so let's go to yours now. Oh, I didn't mean to X out of that, but I did. So here's Brennan's.
The only thing I don't like about it is some of the cinder blocks are cut different, and they don't all match, and it really irks me. but it is what it is, man.
Yeah, are you gonna change it out or ever?
Or? Yeah, I will. I want to do the smaller. I think I'm gonna do the smaller cinder blocks.
You're gonna move to what he did.
I think so, but then like I have 30 cinder blocks to do nothing with, so I don't know what exactly. I'm gonna do this in the snake room too, though. I think.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, because I like it, it looks good. It's cheap. You can mount the lights up inside under the plywood in between the 2x4s, so you can't see the light fixture itself, which I like. And it's just it's clean looking. I like it. It's very industrial, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, no, I think it looks great. I like obviously is there another picture? Because you have all Exoterras now down there too, right?
Yeah, so all those tubs are gone. Everybody's in an Exoterra finally.
Yeah,
it's been a Yeah, it's been very expensive, but it's worth it, man.
Yeah, but now it's
I
like you have the baseline, and anything new you can just it's less expensive now.
Yeah, and my local reptile shop sells Exoterras, the 12-12-18s for like $80, which is cheaper than anywhere I've seen. So
Nice. Is that what these are up here?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Those
gotcha.
are the 12-12-18s, and then there's like one of the very small like 8-8-12s, I think, down in the left
Here.
corner with like a
Yeah.
baby garg in it. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, I get them
the
cheap.
baby garg?
What?
Is that the baby garg that was purchased at Tinley?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think so. I think they both were.
That was the Tinley I was at.
Yeah, yeah, that little like grayish brownish
Yeah.
little guy that's not little anymore. He like needs a bigger cage as soon as possible.
Grow them out.
But yeah, man, they're so this is just cinder blocks, like I said, and then 4 2x4s stacked on its side back, if that makes sense, like staggered back, and then plywood on top, screwed down. The 2x are stained, painted the plywood black, and then put the lights in, threw the cages on. It was a pretty straightforward process.
It looks really good, man. It looks really good. Is that the
Yeah,
lychee cage up above?
yeah,
Okay, gotcha. What
yeah.
kind of
So
problem?
I was gonna do that shelf all the way across, but then I was like, where am I gonna put the lychee? So then I
Mm,
just decided to do the 3 shelves with the lower shelf on the left. So I got the lychee there, and then if you go back to the other picture, and you can see the plants back in the corner there. I just threw all the plants there. And then I had enough material left over to make a 4-foot stand, which has the betta fish tank, the incubator, and then that 3 bay that's empty currently. That'll eventually be for baby cat geckos.
nice.
Yeah,
It's awesome, man. Yeah, it looks
it,
really good. It's like a really functional use of your space too.
yeah, it makes the room feel bigger,
Yeah,
and it's more streamlined because like I said, everybody was in tubs and on those metal racks. I had to physically pull the tub out off the rack, put it on the floor, spray them, feed them, put it back,
yeah,
which takes a lot of time when you have whatever 12, 15 geckos in a room. So
yeah.
now everybody's in front opening cages. So I just unlock all of them. I open up a whole row. I spray them down, feed them, close them, lock them, move to the next one. It takes me 10 minutes to feed and water everybody.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Can't wait
And then
to.
it's got like pothos. I'm going to do like pothos on the very top there, kind
Okay,
of vining down because those are grow lights, those Sanzi grow lights, which I'm a big fan of.
okay. You're not going to do cages up here eventually.
It's actually not tall enough to do the 12-12-18s up there. I'm just shy.
Gotcha.
So with how we had to do the ceilings, there it comes out to like just over 7-foot ceilings downstairs,
Yep,
and I'm literally like 4 or 5 inches too short to fit another row of cages up there.
dude. 7-foot ceilings are the biggest pain in the ass.
They are,
Um,
man. It makes everything difficult.
yeah, I've got 7-foot ceilings um, in my basement where my reptile room is,
Yeah.
and it's just like you can't. And really, because of the way it is down there, sometimes it's below 7 feet, and
Hmm.
so it's like, and if anything's coming down from the ceiling, whatever, it just does, you really can't use all 7 feet of that. You can really only get 6 foot up,
Yep.
um, and that's really painful. It's a really weird height to do anything.
Yeah, I could have if I would have done like if I would have not done the cinder blocks on the bottom row to lift that bottom shelf up. If I would have put them on the floor, it probably would have worked, but then it would have been so uneven that it just would have been shit. So,
Yeah,
and I want to put like lights under there and make it look. I'm a big fan of lighting.
yeah,
Obviously, my rooms light up like a hospital, so I'm a big fan. And then I gotta like paint the floor again because that's where all that water damage was. Well, not water damage, but that's where that water came in, and it
yeah.
like just bubbled up the paint. So I gotta fix
That's the
that. But
pain. Yeah, but it looks good, man. It looks really good. It's really professional.
yeah, yeah, I was stoked on it. Like the incubator fit perfect underneath that low point, which I was kind of worried about.
Yeah.
Which means I can put more 3-foot cages up there. So that's
Oh,
gonna it'll work.
where the incubator is, you're saying?
Yeah, because that incubator's it's about the same size as that lychee cage, I believe. So the goal is I can put another 3 foot tall next to the lychee, and then I can probably do two, maybe three wide on that 4 foot shelf there if I move the incubator.
Okay.
But I'm eventually going to build one where this white cabinet is. I'm going to do another one there next to the sink too,
Okay.
because
You're
I'm
gonna
going to
get
need
rid of the
more.
white cabinet.
I don't know. I want to maybe try to incorporate it somehow. It doesn't fix. It's white, and everything else is like dark.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess the sink's white too. So
I
I don't
think
know what I'm gonna do.
I think at some point we should have a whole discussion on organizing a reptile room, and or like just setting up a reptile room because I was
Yeah,
just thinking about this with the white cabinet, like having storage space is something that I feel like I never think about because I'm just like, oh, where can I put animals? But like storage space is so important, especially if you want to have like a clean looking room where
yeah.
all your supplies aren't just like out, you know?
And funny enough, that cabinet wasn't even planned to go in this room at all. So that was originally the cabinet that was going to go in our downstairs bathroom.
Okay.
But Christy, my girlfriend, was painting the ceilings one night, and she knocked the top off and shattered it. And they don't just sell the tops, like it's a specific top for this cabinet.
Yeah.
So we had to buy a whole new one. So we had the cabinet with no sink top. So I just put a piece of PVC, screwed it down, and threw it in the gecko room. And I'm kind of glad. I'm not happy she broke it, but it was an accident, obviously. But like it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, because now you've got it in there.
Yeah, and it's perfect. It's got the three drawers and then the two cabinets that open. So I have like the top drawers, like all the crested gecko diet and like the food bowls and the all that stuff, calcium, yada yada. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's just like your typical reptile room supplies like tongs, scissors. I got tape in there for like shipping boxes, all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having something like that to store everything is really important, and people,
Yeah.
especially myself, always forget about that or overlook it. So
Yeah. The only thing I'm missing in there is a trash can.
you don't have a
I,
trash can in there?
I have one in the snake room, but I don't have one for the gecko room. So I gotta like walk into each room to like throw my shit away, which is
Ah,
annoying.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, trash cans
But
are
it's a
huge.
work in progress, man. I
No,
have like this isn't even done. Like this is just the second version of my idea.
yeah,
I have some ideas I'm gonna get to at some point.
oh, it looks good, man. I can't wait to talk about those ideas. Looks awesome.
Yeah. I got some.
I
I don't
got
know how
some.
they're gonna work yet, but I've got some ideas. So
Awesome,
we'll
man.
see.
Oh, looks good. This is like the epitome of what this podcast is, though. Is like this isn't necessarily a DIY project that is like cage related, but it's like
Yeah.
for your reptiles. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's space saving. It's like this is. I would love to talk more about this and like how people build shelving units or racks or however to be like most space efficient and
Yeah.
designing that because there's a lot of thought that goes into something like this, especially when you've got lights that you want to hide and heat lights and stuff like that. Like to have a space efficient rack, like um, and have heat lights on it is really a difficult task, especially when you're working with 7 foot ceilings. Like I've got a rack downstairs that's 6 foot by 18 inches, and
Hmm.
I've got all my Repti Zoo enclosures on there. And so that's what I planned it around was the Repti Zoo enclosures and also kind of the Exoterras. But I gave some a little bit of clearance so I could fit the cage in, and just in case there was any margin for error, basically.
Yeah.
Um, but and then also found a one of those Zilla lights. Basically, it's like a low profile heat light, so I could actually fit it with inside the rack
Hmm.
and keep everything contained. But the Exoterras, man, they don't fit in there because they've got those feet on them. You know,
Oh yeah.
they're actually taller than 18 inches, significantly taller. I think they're like 19 inches or something. So like my margin for error didn't help.
Yeah.
Um, so like planning that one rack, like the amount of research that I had to do to find the right lights that could fit in there and like
Yeah.
everything like that. Like there's so many individual components that you got to think about when you're doing something like this. It's It's a lot to think about. So
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it that, like you said, when you're thinking about building something like that, it's like, oh, it's going to be simple. Just do this, this, and this, and we're good.
yeah.
And then, like you said, you go to put a cage on it and it don't fit. It's like,
Hmm.
oh shit, what do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like I want to do, like I said, I want to do these shelves in the snake room, but like I'm not going to be able to move the polychorus cage. Like, there's no way. That thing is heavy as hell.
You
So I don't know how I'm going to do that, but
just wait for me to come up there and I'll help you move it.
okay,
Big
deal.
Daddy.
You gotta come up and help me build my pond anyway.
I know. We got to figure that out. Um, but yeah, speaking of ponds, sort
Mhm.
of, if we
Yeah.
want to change gears here.
Yeah,
Um,
little segue.
little segue. I went herping a couple of times.
Mhm.
Uh, Found some really cool stuff. So I'll start at the beginning. We kind of mentioned this in the episode with Roy, but so my girlfriend is from New Jersey, and so we were up in New Jersey, the modern Rome for Easter, celebrating Easter Sunday. So I call it the modern Rome because it's the birthplace of Catholicism, I believe. Um, but no, so we were up there celebrating Easter, and I had some free time, and where her family's from in New Jersey is like right in the middle of the Pine Barrens, which is like a super famous area for herpers. Like it's an amazing place. It's really weird because it's almost like you get all the same species you get, not all, but you get a lot of the same species you get here in South Carolina up in New Jersey, which is a weird thing to think about. All these animals being up there, plus more. Like you get wood turtles and all kinds of random stuff. The pine snake is super famous for it. It's funny whenever I go up there and I'm talking about snakes, they're like, "Oh, do you know about the pine snake?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Oh yeah, like none of this can be developed because the pine snake." It's like New Jerseyans have like a weird relationship with pine snakes because they're like, well, we can't buy this property or whatever because of pine snakes because they're super protected up there, which I love, but they're,
Yeah.
you know, so it's just funny to think about pine snakes in that way when to us pine snakes are like a pinnacle species almost.
Yeah,
But
the coolest snakes ever, yeah.
yeah, so it's really funny. But this habitat's super cool. They used to do a lot of cranberry bogs up there. They still do. Cranberries are really like that's their largest fruit that they produce up there. And so to farm cranberries, you basically dig large ponds, and then the cranberries grow, and then you skim them off the top. Is my basic understanding of it. It's probably far more complex than that. But where my girlfriend's family is, there's a park there, and I won't name the park for sake of keeping these turtles protected. But there's a park there where there used to be an old cranberry bog, and it's no longer in use, and so they've created a state park. And so I was like, you know what? I've got some free time. I know there's spotted turtles in the area. I'm gonna go out there and have a look, see if I can't find any. So I get out there. It's a beautiful day. It's like mid 60s. Walking along, I see some turtles in these vernal pools. They're like really like marshy, forested pools that probably aren't filled with water year round. Which is, if you know anything about spotted turtles, that's like their premium habitat. They love these swampy pools, basically, like real shallow. Um, get sun for them to bask in, stuff like that. So I was walking by this pool, saw some turtles basking, and I was like, this looks like perfect spotted turtle habitat. Those are definitely spotted turtles. I go take a picture. I'm like, nice, I found a spotted turtle. They're like 100 feet away from me. They're very far. So I'm not,
Yeah.
my picture is poor. My vision is poor. So I was looking at these things. I thought they were spotted turtles. I like sent a picture to the group. I was like, spotted turtles. And then, much to my sadness, Zach Holland, our buddy Queen City Constructors, replied and was like, I only see a painted turtle. What are you talking about? And I inspected the picture again because I hadn't inspected the picture well. And I was like, that's a painted turtle for sure. So really sad about that. I was, real disappointed, and I just kept walking, and I kept seeing a ton more painted turtles, which honestly though, like I don't get to see painted turtles a lot here. They're not super common exactly where I am. If you go a little bit, to the west and to the north, they're really common, but where I am, they're not super common. So super stoked to see them. Saw probably like 20 of them, and I was just walking through this forest, this pine forest, which was beautiful habitat. I was just kind of looking for whatever I could see, not really expecting to see snakes just because it was only mid 60s. Definitely could have been, but whatever. So I saw a bunch of turtles, and I'm walking back, and I was like, all right, I got to leave soon. Got to figure out another spot to go. So on the way back, there was this path that went by the old cranberry bog. I was like, okay, I'll go check that out. To me, it seemed like too open water for spotted turtles to be in. It was a very large, almost lake.
Yeah.
So I was just walking down this path. I was seeing more painted turtles, and it's weird. They have a lot of like aquatic vegetation there. Like I don't know what kind of plant it is, but it's similar to like a hornwort or like any of those like normal aquarium plants that you would get that kind of create like a mat on the surface.
Yeah.
And so there's a ton of this. So the painted turtles were basking. They weren't out of the water. They were just had their shells up, like laying in this aquatic vegetation by the side of the pond or the lake. So that was really cool. Saw a bunch of them, and then I kept walking, and I was like, that doesn't look like a painted turtle. And then I look immediately to the left of it, and I was like, that doesn't look like a painted turtle. And then there was 4 more, so it's 6 total, not painted turtles. And I was like, these are spotted turtles. This is so sick. So I ended up
And
seeing
then
6
Jack
turtles.
lost his shit.
Yeah, literally, I went crazy, man. I was like, there were people walking on the path who they were like, oh, turtles. I was like, no, you don't understand. I was like, these are amazing. You need to come appreciate them. So I was educating all these people on the path about spotted turtles, and they were like, how do you tell it's a spotted turtle versus one of the other turtles? I was like, they have spots. So that was my basic explanation to them. But it was really cool. People got super interested. People were taking pictures. They were like so enamored by him. It was amazing. So saw 6 of them. They were all kind of doing the same thing, basking on this aquatic vegetation. And then one kind of came up on shore and was basking on shore, and I was able to get some good pictures. I also saw a northern water snake basking on top of this aquatic vegetation in the same way, which was really funny. Just not something that I'm used to seeing here. So that was cool to see. And then I also saw a ribbon snake that kind of jetted off into the water once I scooped it, which had a nice meal in it and was a really pretty snake. But it was really cool to see those turtles. Like Brenden said, I lost my shit. I was freaking out. I was so excited. I've never seen spotted turtles in the wild before. That was a lifer for me, and just amazing to see, honestly. But I took that mental note of the way that they were basking on that aquatic vegetation. I'm definitely going to be adding a lot more, either real live plants, depending on the species of turtle, and then some fake plants for some that aren't as friendly towards plants, so that they can kind of do the same thing and trying to get that under the UVB so they can be, just perched up on top of that aquatic vegetation, not fully out of the water, just trying to get some UVB on their back, which I think, these turtles did it. I'm not sure if the species of turtles that I have would do it, but I'm pretty sure they would. So
there's only one way to find out, right?
Trying shit. We're gonna try.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. It's just you got to try shit.
Yep. So that was a really cool observation for me, and something that I kind of took away from it in my habitat design. So that was New Jersey. Really stoked about that, and have a whole new appreciation for the New Jersey pinelands, and definitely want to get back up there. Obviously, my girlfriend's family's there, so I'll be up there a good bit. So I definitely want to get some more herping time in out there, because I only explored a very, very small portion of this state park. It's a massive state park. So definitely want to get back up there. But then, so that was 2 weekends ago. Last weekend, on Friday, I drove down to Charleston, South Carolina, and then met up with Jacob Bratz from THP and Flippin' Tin. He's on the TV back there.
You can't see him very well, but he's on there somewhere.
He's on there. That beautiful man. So I met up with him and Gabe Schuler, who we're definitely going to get on the podcast as well at some point. And met up with them, got to see Gabe's collection and some of his habitats that he's built, which are amazing. And I'm sure we'll break those down when we talk to him. But we headed out for a weekend of herping in both Francis Marion, and then went down to Tillman area in South Carolina, like down towards the Georgia border, basically, to look for some other stuff. So in Francis Marion, it was very cold that morning. It got down to 39, I want to say, which is very cold for the South Carolina coast, especially in April. So we didn't have super high expectations.
Hold on, I gotta interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Jack was so bummed, dude, that it was gonna be cold.
Mm-hmm.
He was so upset. He was thinking they weren't gonna find anything. It was gonna be a bust the entire weekend. And little did Jack know that he was about to have an insane weekend.
Yeah.
Continue.
Literally, I was so sad. Like I was still excited for the weekend. Like it was just going to be nice to be out in the woods and
yeah, for sure,
hang out with Jake and Gabe and just have a good time regardless. But I definitely was like not. My expectations were very low. But we get
which
out
I do feel helped kind of, right? Like you had no expectations, so whenever you, and you'll talk about it, but whenever you found the things that you guys found, I'm sure you were just like over the moon.
Yeah, because exactly like going into it with no expectations was honestly great because anything we found was cool.
Yeah,
like the first thing we found, we flipped some sites down there and found copperheads, and I think it was 40 something degrees or maybe low 50s when we found these copperheads. Right away, big female and a male, and so was amazed of finding those. But like copperheads, I've seen a ton of copperheads. Copperheads are a very common snake, especially in South Carolina. I feel like they might be one of the most common snakes down here. And I think we ended up seeing 5 total that weekend. So like there's a lot of them here, but just having zero expectation and seeing them was insane. Like I was so grateful that I was able to see them because of that. So so got those 2 copperheads right away in the morning. Went to a couple other sites and got some black racers. I think we saw 7 black racers total, I want to say. Which sounds like a lot, but black racers again are like, if there's sun there's going to be black racers, and especially in Francis Marion, they're probably, I was saying copperheads are the most common snake in South Carolina. They might be, but black racers in Francis Marion, I mean, there's thousands of them.
Probably. Black racers for you is like garter snakes for me here in Illinois. Like they're just everywhere.
And they're super fast, so it's like you don't want to really put too much effort into catching them. They bite the crap out of you if you do catch them. So like, we caught the first one. Jake got a good bite from it, and after that, when we'd see them, we just say hello and let them go about their day. So we got those black racers, and then we went out and hiked a recent burn down there. So they do like managed burns basically to prevent wildfire. The National Forest Service does that. And so there's a recent patch that it burned. So we started walking through that, and we're able to turn up a canebrake rattlesnake, or depending on where you're at, timber. But in these parts, we call them canebrakes, and Jake will get mad at me if I call them anything else. So canebrake rattlesnakes, but atracadatus, I want to believe. But yeah, so we found this super cool canebrake. He was sitting in a I don't even know what it basically, it's like a steel barrel, and he was just hanging out like halfway in the sun, getting some sun on a colder day. We were able to get some good in situ pictures. We didn't have to touch him or do anything to him, which was really cool. And that picture is on my Instagram. And then Jake and Sky put up a reel of it as well on Flippin' Tin's Instagram.
Yeah, so, man, it was so cool to see that.
Yeah,
it looked so good.
Yeah, it was really cool seeing it just be in that position. It was funny.
Yeah,
like that area was like it's like the only like area of tin that we kind of found that wasn't like necessarily put out. And it was just like this old, like burned up, maybe like a moonshining thing. It was like really old. It definitely could have been like a moonshine still or something. And it had basically like burned and been weathered throughout the years. And because it was in the middle of this prescribed burn, there wasn't much cover like through the rest of it. Like there were stump holes and stuff like that, but had a snake been out on the move, like it would have been very easy to spot. So as soon as we walked up on this, I was like, "There's got to be a snake in here," because like, where else would a snake be here? So we started messing around in there, and then they went to go roll this this thing out of the way, and I was like, "Cane, cane, cane!" Like no one touch it. Like I don't know if they actually were, but I was worried somebody's going to put their hand basically.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
which that would not have been a fun bite, especially where we were. We were in a pretty remote area, so was a little nervous that somebody was going to accidentally do that. So I was like, "Cane, cane, cane," and then we just hung out and took pictures of him for a while, which was amazing. He was so chill, didn't do anything, didn't rattle, nothing. So
cool.
Yeah, that was a really cool thing. And then we went to go find rainbow snakes. So that was the second part of our day, was going to a boat landing to look for rainbow snakes. And so,
and boy, did you find them.
Yeah. So we ended up finding 3 rainbow snakes. And I'm sure Jake is talking about this on the podcast as well right now. So we're getting 2 stories here, but like, so Gabe was able to find the first one, and then Jake ended up finding the other 2, which I know he was super stoked about. Like, Jake's a huge herping nerd, and for him, he's like, it'll count as my lifer if I don't find it, but he was like, I want to be the one to find it. And so him finding those 2, and one of them being an absolute unit of a rainbow snake, was really cool. So, but those snakes are really strange looking snakes. They're heavily aquatic. They eat American eels. That's their main diet. I think their only diet. They're kind of gross. I mean, they're they're pretty snakes as far as their coloring, but all the ones
they are
coming out of brumation in shed. Apparently, they carry snake fungal disease.
Oh wow!
Within them, so just kind of gross snakes when you're up close with them, but they were still cool nonetheless. I was really stoked to be able to see them and add them to my list of herps for South Carolina. So that was really cool. That was day 1, and then day 2 we headed down to Jake's area and did some herping out there. Didn't find a ton. I think we only found 2 copperheads that day out there, but we were in really cool habitat looking for eastern diamondbacks and gopher tortoises and stuff like that, which was just amazing. And then we did a trip. We or not a trip, it was only like 10-15 minutes away, but did some cruising through Okatee Hunt Club, which was amazing. There was an alligator in the middle of the road there, which was really cool to see. Saw some turtles as well, but it was just cool being out there, man. Like, you hear all these stories about Okatee, and you read all these stories like in Caulfield's book and stuff like that about the old days catching corn snakes or red rat snakes out there in Okatee Hunt Club. And being out there and just driving through was like, I could feel like the snake history out there, and seeing the signs saying, no trespassing, Okatee Club, because it's especially now they definitely don't want people, in the property. So we just went out and cruised the roads, and the roads are public roads, so we were allowed to be there. So, but yeah, just cruised through those, and it was really cool, swampy / sandhilly, lowland, low country South Carolina habitat, which was amazing. It's my favorite habitat. It's what makes South Carolina. Like, that piece of South Carolina is the epitome of the South Carolina low country. Like, that's it. There's just no one out there. You're just driving through. It was amazing. So all in all, amazing trip. I had a great time. I saw a ton of stuff. I'm really intrigued about the idea and the concept of tin. And obviously, when we're talking about tin, it's not necessarily tin. It's like steel usually, and covered boards basically. So it could be plywood, whatever. But it's really interesting to me how the snakes almost prefer that kind of habitat over like a natural stump or something. And it makes sense because like something like metal would heat up more
Yep.
quickly, especially if it's in the sun in the right spot. And so snake
It
could go
holds heat
under there.
longer too.
Yeah. So a snake could go under there early morning or
Yep.
shelter the night over there, and then in the morning warm up and then be able to move on, or in the evening go under there and it's a nice warm spot for them to spend the night. And so I don't know, it's just it's interesting too because of the how flat it is almost, like it's not necessarily like they've got some contacting them on all sides.
Right. Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing that I would love to kind of apply within my enclosures. And I wouldn't want to do like tin, but having some sort of spot where they could be like fully like compressed under something against the substrate, especially for a lot of the snakes that I keep, which, king snakes and rat snakes and corn snakes and stuff like that, and trying to figure out a way that I could almost replicate that. I don't know. It wouldn't be easy to replicate in an enclosure. Yeah, I think it's easier when you have a large sheet of tin that you can lay out, and doing it
Yeah,
on
for
a small
sure.
scale, it's probably harder. But I don't know, just really flat hide maybe that I could use to do that. But I don't know.
Yeah. Or even just like if you do like a cork round or something, just stuff it with
With substrate.
with substrate and just let them kind of make their own little
Yeah,
cavity in there would work too, I think.
yeah. So then they have contact at all sides.
Yeah,
I
that's
think that's
like
really what it is the contact.
yeah, that's like I bring up the Baird's enclosure a lot, but that bottom shelf that's there, man, I didn't even mean to, but there's just like a little tiny gap underneath it, and like she just made her own little burrow under there, and she stays there probably 18 hours a day. She's crammed into that, and I can't get her out. It's so tight. So I mean, they obviously prefer it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's the exact same concept.
Yeah,
A tight period. I mean, I'd love to be able to replicate the temperature piece of it as well.
yeah,
I don't think that I could, just because of doing that in such a small space would be hard. But yeah, it was really cool. Is that what picture are they showing on the screen back behind you?
It looks like they're showing Rob's Instagram currently.
Oh, never mind. I didn't know if they were showing
Mr. Creeping It Real.
Shout out Rob, great guy.
Shout out Rob. Yeah, Rob's dope.
I didn't know if they were showing the stuff from the trip. That would be funny.
No, not yet. They're showing Rob's been herping like crazy, dude. His stories on Instagram have been wild.
Yeah, he's been getting out there. It's the time, man.
Dude, you guys make me so I'm like famously not a herper, right? I think everybody knows that. Like I don't make time to get outside as much as I would like to, But man, you guys make me want to just live out there, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I get out like a couple times a year. I'll get out and find some cool stuff, but I mean, around me, we don't really have much, except for like your typical garters, ribbons, water snakes, which are cool, but well, I guess we got black rats and stuff too, but
prairie kings,
yeah,
milk snakes. You guys got insane milk snakes out there.
Yeah, which I've never seen yet. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just never think about going out and looking for stuff, but I need to. I'm like right next to the Mississippi. Like there's all kinds of stuff here. I just don't like. I got the one spot I go to, but
and you're only 2 hours from Snake Road.
Yeah, which I actually I was talking to Christy about that. I think we're gonna go the end of this month down to kind of scope that out and see what all the hype's about. So hopefully I'll be able to bring back some good stories of that. But yeah, I definitely I plan to get out more. Like that's been a big goal of mine, is to get out and look for some stuff.
Yeah.
It's just fun, man. Whether you find anything or not, it's just nice to be outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my favorite part, is just being like fully immersed in nature and not thinking about anything other than like being solely focused on trying to see a snake. You're so tuned in on any movement or any like hole or anything that a snake could be in, you can't think about anything else, or you're not going to see anything. So you have to be like fully focused, and it really just calms my ADHD and my anxiety.
Yeah.
Just like locks me in. So
Yeah, I always like I go out often to get like wood and leaves and stuff like the enclosures, but I never have like a full day to just go out and because I mean I have the spot I go to is just acres and acres and acres of just woods. And I've never walked all of it, and I've lived here my entire life, you know. So it's like I don't know, I need to make a day to just like wake up as the sun's coming up, go out there and then just spend the day and just see
yeah,
what I can find.
absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. That's my favorite thing. I forgot too. There's one other thing that I found. Um, so I, so we wrapped up with Jake. I went down to my dad's. So my dad lives down in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and so drove back to my place on Monday after work, and decided to make a pit stop at Pickney Island Wildlife Refuge. Which is right off of Hilton Head. It's an amazing place, especially if you're a birder. The number of species of birds out there, and endangered birds, and storks and spoonbills and
Yeah.
ibises and all kinds of stuff are all out there. Tons of alligators, turtles. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be. But I was out there mostly looking for eastern diamondback rattlesnakes. There's no like real observed sightings of them out there, but the habitat's too perfect. It's in their range. I can't imagine that they're not there. So I was kind of looking out there to try to find one. Didn't find those, but I was in this perfect habitat, peeking behind bark, and it's a tactic that herpers use
Yeah.
to look for snakes, because a lot of snakes will hide behind bark, like rat snakes and scarlet kings and scarlet snakes and corn snakes. Like they'll all hide behind this bark on rotting trees. And so I was just peeking behind some of the bark, just looking for things. Found a ton of skinks that way. And on one of the trees, I pulled back and I found a scarlet snake,
Yeah. A
which was
nice one.
amazing. Yeah, dude, a tank too, a huge one. It didn't look that big, but it was massive for what it is.
Right.
Scarlet snakes are so pretty, man. Like they've got these reds and these grays that just like contrast so nicely. Um, and it was a lifer for me. I've never found one before, so super stoked to check that off my list. So between that, the rainbow snakes, and then the spotted turtles, I got 3 lifers in a matter of like 8 days. So that was pretty good. I was pretty happy
Yeah,
with
man,
that.
that's awesome.
So, and hopefully, the last thing I'll say about the herping thing is we are going out again, large group of us, to Francis Marion next weekend. So hopefully I'll get my lifer corn snake, which sounds pretty funny to say,
Right.
because corn snakes are not as common as they used to be, but very common. Not around me, but in South Carolina generally. And when I tell people, yeah, I need my lifer corn snake, people always laugh at me. Like Jake was like, "Well, you don't have a corn snake? Like, how do you not have a corn snake?" And I was like, "Dude, they're not by me.
Yeah.
I haven't like really made a concentrated effort in corn snake habitat to find one, and I've been doing that now with Francis Marion and going out to Pickney and stuff like that. Like that's what I've been looking for. That's what I'm going to be focused on next weekend, but just don't have that yet. So definitely need to find one of those guys.
Yeah, man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I definitely have some spots within a few hours of me I want to try to hit either this year or next year, but I'm like 2.5 hours away from Kankakee, like
Yeah.
I have no reason not to go up there and just look around a little bit.
Find some bulls.
Yeah, dude, how fucking cool would that be?
Yeah. Bull snakes would be really cool to find. Like
Yeah.
massive, massive snakes. But if you found a good tin site up there, or coverboard site, you could find them with ease.
Yeah, I gotta start doing some INAT looking and
Yeah.
see where people are finding them, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All I do.
But yeah,
I on
that's a
INAT
goal.
too much.
Yeah, see, I get on there fairly often, but for me, it's just like saving cat gecko pictures. Like that's all I do. So, but yeah,
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, you're focused on the international stuff. You got to hone your craft here, though, man. Before Borneo, you
I need
gotta.
to try at least
Yeah,
because Borneo is a few years out at this point.
yeah, yeah.
So
But
it was a 2025 goal, but I don't think that's going to happen.
2025 just seems so soon now.
I know, dude. It's crazy. Maybe like a 2027 goal, 3
Yeah,
years. I think I can get there in 3 years.
yeah. I think it's like it's really not that bad. I mean, flights are expensive, obviously, and then trying to pay somebody, like we were talking to Father Blue Eddie about
Yeah. Yeah.
paying somebody, but like it's just you just got to commit the funds to it, and then it's really not that bad.
And they do those like the guided tours over there all the time too.
Yeah,
But it's not like, yeah, that sounds fun, but I don't know. I just kind of want to go out and like rough it.
yeah. Just be focused for cat geckos.
Yeah, because like they find everything else, which would be cool. But I'd be in the back of the group, like, okay, yeah, but where's the cats at, man? Like, I
You're
got
like
pockets to fill.
Dismas? Nah, I don't care.
Yeah, right. I'll get out there one day.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, I think we covered that pretty well. What do you want to go into? What do you want to go into next? We've got two topics that we're going to touch on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down. Either one works for me. I don't care.
Okay. Let's go enclosure ones first. So,
Okay.
do you want to give the people a reference point of what we're talking about?
Yeah. So, we're huge fans of Camp Cannon. I feel like a lot of people are. He's like, I don't
The
know,
goat.
one of the most incredible people in herpetoculture, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
One of the nicest dudes. I've never like we almost met him in person, but we were both kind of too nervous to go up to him. But
Yeah.
yeah, he just super cool dude. But he posted a video on his YouTube channel today. He was at Quetzal's place, which is Reptilandia. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
And he was looking around at like all their monitor cages and like stuff like that. And I was watching it earlier while I was eating dinner before we started recording. And I was just thinking like, can an enclosure be too big? Because I feel like it's a topic, especially for snakes. A lot of guys are like, that snake don't need that big of an enclosure. If you put it in that big of an enclosure, it won't eat, it won't do this, yada yada. But they were showing like the blue tree monitor enclosure they have at Reptilandia, and it's like 20 feet tall. It's like a 2-story enclosure that you can like go up to the second story and look down, or the bottom story and look up. And it was just, I don't know, it just kind of got me thinking. And they like cohab different species in the same enclosure too, which is really intriguing to me. They had like an Indo blue tongue living in the bottom and this big, massive blue tree living up top. And it kind of sparked the question. So I just figured I'd ask you on here and kind of, see what you think.
Yeah. No, I like this topic, and I think that it's a very complicated topic
Mm-hmm.
because the answer is yes and no, right?
Right.
Like if you have a ball python in
Mm-hmm.
an 8-foot enclosure, let's take a rack raised ball python so we get every variation of this scenario, and there could be more, but everyone that I can think of right now. A
Yeah.
rack raised ball python, and you put it in an 8-foot enclosure, and you put a hide, you put a water bowl, and you put another hide. So you got a warm end hide, a cold end hide, and a water bowl in the middle. Standard snake setup, for a basic snake setup.
Yeah.
I would say, first of all, with it being a rack raised ball python, it's entirely used to being in a very dark, closed space its entire life. And I
Right.
think the likely thing that would happen is it would stay in one singular hide and not leave the hide because it's too scared to go anywhere. Whether that
Yeah.
means it's going to overheat itself because it's staying in the hot end hide too much, or it's going to be too cold because it's going to stay in the cold side too much. It's going to maybe dehydrate itself because it doesn't want to venture out to the water bowl.
Yep.
It's not going to make use of the enclosure, so you're going to be looking at it and like, yeah, it doesn't use the space. Why would it use the space?
Right.
And I think that goes into the second point, which is how you set the enclosure up. If that enclosure is filled with plants, whether live or fake, and branches for it to climb on, and arboreal hides, and it's a PVC enclosure, so its back is blacked out, so it feels secure that way. And multiple water options and multiple hide options, um, in every possible way. I guarantee you, and maybe for a rack raised ball python, it might take some getting used to.
Yeah.
But eventually it's going to use every inch of that enclosure. But I think it's entirely down to the animal you put in there. So maybe a rack raised ball python, maybe never would come around because it's so mentally like undeveloped to take on that much stimulus.
Generationally too, like
Yeah, just bred to be in a rack. Yeah.
Yeah, like its parents were in Iraq, its parents' parents were in Iraq. It's just like
Yeah.
they're so ball pythons specifically are so like almost domesticated at this point that I don't think. I mean, it could work, but I don't think it would. Especially like you said, a rack raised. I
Yeah.
don't think it would go.
But if you were to put a baby in, say, a 4x2x2, I think a baby, regardless, in a enclosure that size, unless you had a million hides, but then I think maintaining the baby and
Yeah.
pulling it out and trying to check on it and things like that would be difficult, and feeding it would be difficult. So I think in that way too, having too large of an enclosure would be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you raised it in an enclosure and then put it into this large enclosure, I think it would do well. I think it would flourish. Um, I think too, thinking about large enclosures, when you have a large enclosure, you usually have larger spaces for something to get out. So you put a tiny baby corn snake or a rat snake in a large enclosure, you just got to make sure it can't get out. Is I think the key. The
Yeah.
doors have to be flush. They can't. There can be no way for them to get out the doors or the vents or whatever. But yeah, I think that's my take on it. Is yes, it can be too big, but it's not necessarily the size of the enclosure that matters. It's all the other factors that go into the enclosure.
Yeah.
And something like a blue tree, like in the video that Kenan put out, I don't think you could ever, for a monitor species, I don't think you could ever have too large of an enclosure, other than the fact of trying to be able to catch the animal should you need to go to the vet or do a health check or something like that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about too, is like I'm not a fan of I'm gonna try to like word this to where I don't like piss people off because I know this is like a touchy subject for a lot of people, but I uh I don't like the whole idea of the animal don't need this, so I'm not gonna provide it. Like that whole mindset, I'm just not a big fan of.
Yeah.
Um Snakes I feel like are different. They're kind of in their own category. Um Small geckos, stuff like that, like I get. But I feel like larger snakes, monitors, bigger lizards, even the polychrus, like I think like they're technically in a big cage now, but I still don't feel like it's big enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm constantly thinking of how can I go bigger and make it better, not just bigger to go bigger, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of a fine line you got to walk between doing a big, like if I could, I'd do like a 8x8x4, like big walk-in enclosure for the polychrus. And would I ever see them? Probably not. But
Yeah.
would their enrichment go up? Would their quality of life go up if I did it correctly? Probably.
Yeah.
You know. So I don't know. It's one of those topics that I just constantly think about.
Yeah. And I think it's like very much like it's not the size of the enclosure, it's how you set it up. And
Yeah,
that
agreed.
goes across the board for anything. Like, having a 2 foot enclosure versus a 12-inch enclosure, it doesn't matter if you only have hides on the ground
Right.
and no climbing options and no ability to get higher than 12 inches. It's the same enclosure, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, being able to set something up so they can use the full enclosure is the only way that they're going to use the more space.
Right.
Um, yeah. It's also too like it's thinking about the enclosure in a way that is suitable for the exact animal you're going to put in there. They're Greenhouse Boys. I don't know if you follow them on social media, but they have like small greenhouses inside their homes.
Yeah.
They've built. They're not really greenhouses; they're like terrariums, but they look like greenhouses. They're built like with greenhouse material, but they are very large, huge.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they all keep it like this, but I know there's one guy who only keeps anoles in there, and so it's this massive enclosure for like small anoles, not like the giant ones or anything like that. But the thing is it's set up for small anoles. You know, it's got twigs and it has larger branches, but it's mostly twigs, and it has the ability for them to jump from branch to branch because they're close enough together, and it's built so they can't escape, and it has foggers and misters so they can drink the water off of the droplets, and you know, it's set up with that animal in mind. You know, it's like larger enclosures come with a larger, it's harder to maintain conditions. You know, like you have to make sure that, like Eddie was talking about, you know, where he added the heat lights lower down, like you have to make sure that the top of the enclosure is at the right parameters and the low part of the enclosure is at the right parameters. And it doesn't mean that top and low have to be the same temperature, but they have to be whatever the gradient is that you want. You have to make sure you maintain through the entire enclosure, which becomes more complicated. Especially something like that 20-foot enclosure, that or 20-foot tall enclosure that they have that blue tree in at Reptilandia. They've got skinks down at the bottom, like you were saying. They have to maintain a basking spot down there for the skinks, and up top for the blue trees, and maintain the temperature throughout the entire 20 feet of that enclosure. Which to maintain at a temperature, you know, I don't know what Eddie said, but for blue trees, I think it's like, you know, 80 degrees would be like the cooler, and then 90 or whatever. Go back to the episode to listen for specifics, but maintain that throughout the enclosure is relatively difficult. And doing that, like, you know, a lot of times we were just like, oh, just put a heat pad in, but like, you don't want to be heating a blue tongue skink with a heat pad down at the bottom, you know, like you'd rather overhead heat. So being able to fit that in it's just a challenge. I mean, you can do it. It probably isn't that hard, but it's just an extra thing you have to think about when you're setting something like that up. So
yeah, I agree. It's just I don't know, man. I don't know. It's just one of those things that, I mean, I personally like, just like how I am as a person, I never feel like what I'm doing is good enough. So it's like, even like the cat geckos, like I'd like to do something like, so we were talking about like my eventual goals for the gecko room, and I'd like to do like a central cube enclosure, like right in the middle of the gecko room, just like floor to ceiling. And put just like a trio or a group of cat geckos in there and just see what happens, you know?
That'd be sick.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool because they're obviously highly arboreal, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then Eddie's episode is constantly like replaying in my mind, just like I'm still trying to process all the information in that one, but like all the different bugs and you know, isopods and worms, and like I just want to go completely nutty on one enclosure and just try to do just like an insane massive cage for a gecko that's this big, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people might think that's stupid, overkill, waste of time, waste of money.
Yeah.
And that's fine, you know. I'm not expecting everybody to be into that, but
yeah,
I don't know. I think it'd be very rewarding to do it properly. You know?
Would you put like F1s in there, or would you do like your imported ones?
I'd definitely do F1s for sure.
That's another point, is like in an enclosure that big where you're probably not going to see them all the time, you know, having an animal that you know is reliably healthy in there, it would probably be beneficial, so you're not having to dig through there all the time and make sure that they're still living, for lack of a better term, you know? But
yeah, exactly. Like it's already difficult enough to catch them in the exoterras they're in.
Yeah.
So if I put a trio of them in like a floor to ceiling cube, I'd never see them. I know that. I mean, but on the other hand, when you do see them, it's gonna
Yeah,
be
it'd be
like,
sick.
holy shit, how
Yeah,
cool is this? You know?
yeah, yeah.
And
It'd
that's
be
that
sick.
feeling that I want.
Yeah, it'd be like a slice of Borneo in there. You might as well go
Yeah,
in
like try to
orang.
do just like a legit biotope of like all the plants or Malaysian plants. Try my best to replicate it, like the soil,
Yep.
the humidity, the with like misters and foggers and dude, I want to go crazy on something.
Yeah, I think that'd be sick, dude. I think you should do that for sure. I love centerpiece, whether it's an aquarium or a terrarium or whatever. I think
Yeah,
centerpiece things where you can walk 360 around it and
yeah,
view it from all sides, I think is so cool. I think that's the coolest version of an exhibit.
yeah. Because going back to like the herping thing, I find 6 foot long like trees, like actual tree stumps that are just like falling over for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, dude, if I could just like have that in a centerpiece in a 360 cage, like you can walk all the way around the stump with like crazy plants and all kinds of critters in there. And oh, dude,
Yeah.
it's
Would you
just
try to cohab anything in there? Would you try to put another species in there with it?
I would like to. I just don't know. It'd probably have to be another small gecko species.
Or like a frog of some sort?
Frogs would be cool. I didn't
Yeah.
think about frogs.
Yeah.
Chrissy's really into frogs lately, so that could probably work.
What are those mossy frogs? Aren't those from Borneo?
I think so. And yeah, those would be cool. I didn't even think about that.
Mossy frogs in there would be sick.
Mossy frogs would be awesome.
I'm gonna check right now.
I just want to, I don't know, man. That's where I'm at in like my keeping is like, I'm just trying to really make cool things.
Vietnam, never mind. Sorry.
Oh, not even close.
But
There's
there's
got to
no
be
frogs in
there's,
Vietnam or in Borneo.
hold on. There's got to be a cool Malaysian frog out there, dude.
Oh well, I don't know if they would eat the cat geckos, but those ground frogs, the Malaysian leaf frogs or whatever.
Oh
Those,
yeah.
yeah, but they might
Yeah,
eat.
we don't want the cat geckos getting eaten though.
Yeah, but it'd be sick to do frogs because then they could like fully like a tree frog of some sort could like fully like utilize the top end of the space, and I'm sure the cat geckos would go there up there at night. But like you said in 2 episodes ago, I think when we really deep dived into cat geckos, that they tend to inhabit the ground most of the time, right? Um, or
Yeah,
they
they're
ground a lot.
okay. I'm gonna have you pull these up so we can check these out real quick.
Yeah, I can pull them. Just tell me a name.
Uh,
I'll Google
the
'em.
frilled tree frog,
Oh,
I think would be freaking sick, dude.
I've seen these before. Yeah, yeah,
How cool would that be to do a group of those with the cat geckos? Like full Borneo biotope.
yeah.
Yeah, look at those, dude.
They'd be
How cool would that
names.
be?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you should do that. I mean, the thing is with frogs too, and if you're doing that larger enclosure, you could do multi-species. Like you could do a couple of species of frogs. Like
Yeah.
it'd be sick. Do a rain chamber in there, which we need to talk about at some point.
Yeah, we do.
We need to have somebody on here who's done it. But I saw one on Instagram, and the way they did it was like a PVC or like a plexiglass sheet, basically, where they
Yeah,
drilled a bunch of holes into, and then there was a pump that went up there, and then they put
I saw
string.
that.
Yeah, so they put string through the holes, so then it dropped down, and so it like filled this tray, and then the water would drop down off these strings, and it was like actual like
Yeah.
rainfall. It looked like actual rainfall, which would be cool. Because misters are great, but they don't necessarily replicate rainfall.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to get those like bigger droplets would be really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah, it was just a question that came up as I was watching that video and was thinking about like, and I think we both kind of agreed like the bigger the species, I don't think there's such thing as too big of an enclosure.
yeah,
But the small stuff is kind of that gray area where could you go crazy? Absolutely. But how many people are going to do that and do it correctly?
yeah,
I feel like there's not many.
yeah. Yeah, because it's just a lot more to maintain and ensure that it's a lot harder. Like, think about heating a house versus heating a terrarium. There's a
Yeah.
lot more money involved. It's a lot.
Yeah, a lot more
Com-
expensive. More
you just
equipment.
you think about your room, right? Like the way my house is set up, I've got 2 bedrooms and then the main area and the kitchen. And the front bedroom is always colder than my bedroom,
Yeah,
always. And there's no like good way for me to like. I can never keep the 2 bedrooms the exact same temperature. It is impossible.
right.
And you think about a large enclosure like that, and you're going to start running into the same issues. And that's when you have to start implementing like those lower heat lights or like however you need to do it, fans up at the top to keep the top cooler, whatever you need to do. But you need to. There's a lot more thought that needs to go into it in order to have, um, the proper temperatures throughout the enclosure.
Yeah, that is true.
So,
Especially like this is completely off topic, but the house temperature thing. My my thermostat that runs my oil heater in the snake room like shit out on me a week ago or whatever.
mm-hmm.
I haven't bought a new one because I found out it was never turning on anyway because the room as it heats up during the day stays a perfect 82 degrees.
Nice.
But it's not summer yet.
So
So
you might need an air conditioner.
I might need to do something down there.
Yeah.
And I need to figure that out soon because I mean it's in the basement, obviously, and the basement stays if I close the vents down here or the AC's on, it's like high 60s down here. So I mean, I'm hoping that's enough to help, but those rooms are so insulated
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know how I'm gonna do that yet. If I need to get just like a small roll around AC unit or what.
Swamp cooler, maybe.
Yeah, maybe something. Yeah, because I didn't even realize the heater never really turned on. Like it was just always 80 degrees in there. So I was like, okay, the heater's working fine, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thermostat shit out on me, and I went in there and I was like, oh, it's 82 without the heater. So
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
see.
I run into the same issue in my basement, mainly because Kevin's enclosure,
Mhm.
on the hot end gets up to 90 degrees during the day,
Yeah,
on his basking spot, um, which is really hot, and it's not a well insulated enclosure, so it just the heat just percolates throughout the room,
yeah,
and so I have a little bit of concern about that for this summer, just because I've added some things down there, as far as temperature. So I think I'll have to put a lot of things on ambient, especially all the native stuff will be on ambient. Um, but like it's just another thing to think about in room conditions.
yeah.
Uh,
This is my first summer with these rooms, so I haven't even experienced summer with them yet.
yeah.
So I'm
What's
hoping,
though is like, dude, you're gonna experience it this summer, and then next summer will be completely different because your
yeah,
rooms will be different, and then the next summer, so like you're never gonna have like you just. I feel like it's like one of those things you have to have all the equipment so you can adjust it. However,
right.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, man. I don't know. But I'm just glad that they're down here now because when they were upstairs, and this is like way off topic, but when they were upstairs in the front room, when you were here, that room they were in upstairs, my house gets beamed with sun 24/7 because I have no trees around me. So that front room would get like 90, and
Yeah,
it's my bedroom currently, which is I had to put like a window unit in there to keep it cool because I can't sleep when it's hot. It's got to be
yeah,
like fucking frigid cold.
yeah,
Um, So at least I don't have to deal with that this year. Like that room's never going to get 90. There's no way. It's too cold down here to do that. But
yeah,
it'll be interesting. It's just again something to think about when you're building your rooms or whatever, where your enclosures are, if they're in a basement, if they're upstairs, if they're on your second story, you know, if the
yeah,
sun hits the window. There's just so much to think about that I feel like a lot of people don't consider.
yeah. Do you have fans in there?
I do, yeah. Each room has a fan.
Yeah, I put a box fan downstairs in mine, and that helped with the temperature.
Yeah.
Um, Especially because it's a basement, so um, there's like the ground temperature down there is like 60s,
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
and so having the fan kind of blow the air around, especially blow it to where the back of the basement. So my basement's unfinished; it's a crawl space, and then I have it encapsulated. It saying it's unfinished is not like it's not an appropriate term for it, but it's unfinished.
Yeah.
So the back area of it is all dirt, and so blowing the air to the back where it can be cooled by the air by the ground, and then it coming back around to the front, having been cooled, kind of allows it to like what would be the word like even out the temperature, so it's not as like it doesn't cool it necessarily, but it's not it keeps it at a stabilized lower
Right.
temperature than it would be without the fans, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But
yeah,
now I have a proper like gradient day and night now,
yeah,
because before with that heater, nighttime it would still be about 78, 80. Now it gets down to like 74, 75 at night,
awesome.
which
Yeah,
is perfect.
yeah,
It works out great. And the gecko room stays constant now. So I'm that's what I'm worried about. Like if the snakes get like the snakes, the leopard geckos, if they get warmer, it's not a big deal. If the
yeah,
cat geckos get warmer, it's detrimental,
yeah,
especially
yeah,
if I have eggs incubating. So
yeah, yeah.
that's the room I'm really going to try to keep
Keep cool.
cooler. Yeah. Which that I can always like crack the door to the basement and like blow a fan in there or whatever. So
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll play around with it. But
yeah,
yeah, that just got me thinking when you were talking about the house temperatures and stuff.
yeah. No, I'm intrigued to see how that develops over the summer. We'll have to
Yeah.
definitely touch base on that.
Hopefully I'll have eggs already hatched before then because, at least a few.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
see.
yeah. At least two.
Yeah.
At least two. Awesome, man. Well, I think that was a good discussion. I think people can kind of take things from it. I had another idea that I wanted to talk about tonight, kind of with the DIY mindset in place, and that's filtration.
Yeah.
Brenden, you and I are both fish keepers. We love fish.
Mm-hmm.
Which exciting news about the fish? Also, I forgot to mention this. I haven't said it yet. My Colombian blue tetras have bred, and so I
Yeah.
have now four. I found another baby today, so I now have four fry,
Hell
which
yeah.
are growing very fast. They're already like small tetras. They're bigger than neon tetras at this point.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, they're growing very fast. Except for the new guy. The new guy's still small. But yeah, so I have bred my Colombian tetras inside my turtle aquarium, which is absurd to me because I have now bred Corydora catfish, the bronze cories, and then also the Colombian blue and red tetra in this. And then my angelfish have also bred, but the cory cats eat their eggs, so
Yeah.
haven't gotten babies from there. But I was super stoked on that. I think breeding of fish is just really testament to water quality, and so I wanted to talk about water quality and filtration in a broad sense, and how you can do DIY filtration. The couple of core pillars that are required in order to gain an understanding of filtration and be able to build your own. But I don't know. I think filtration and water generally, especially to us, Brendan and I both background, I guess, historically are snake guys.
Yep.
I think would be fair to say, and I think from a snake guy perspective, if we want to take it from that outlook, but like water is scary to us, like we're not used to dealing with water. Snakes, we change the water as much as we can, and we just know that it gets nasty, so
Yeah.
that's the extent of like a normal snake person's knowledge of water. And I've experienced this more recently when I'm trying to get people to keep turtles because I love turtles and I'm trying to get everyone to keep them. That people get scared of having water. They think it's a ton of work and painful. And I've been keeping turtles now for 14 years now.
Damn.
And yeah, I've like fully experienced the how bad water can get, and now have a good understanding of it, I think, where it's simple for me to be able to maintain and establish water quality. So I think first the way I want to attack this is Brenden, what is your level of understanding of the nitrate cycle and the water quality, and like now versus like when you started keeping fish, and like what have you learned from it? I'm putting you on the spot here.
I would say honestly, I feel like I'm still like I definitely don't know much. Like I'll be completely honest. Like I just have the 2 fish tanks now.
Yeah.
But like comparing myself to even like 2 years ago, dude, I know so much more.
Yeah.
Before it was just like you put water in a tank, you put the little droplets in there so you could put the fish right in, and then once it gets algae, gross and nasty, you'll drain it all, you clean the tank, and you refill it. That was how it was.
Yeah.
Now, like I have my Pearl Danio tank upstairs, and I have not done a single water change on it, and it is crystal clear. The parameters are spot on perfect. Like it's crazy once you learn, like you said, once you learn like the 2 or 3 or 4 like little things about filtration and like water quality, it makes a freaking difference, man. Yeah.
It's really like those create the basis for everything else, and once you understand those, you can kind of apply it to everything else. So what I want to do really quick is just pull up a simple diagram, so we can kind of look at like the nitrate cycle, because this is like the key baseline thing that we're trying to manage when we talk about water quality. So for the most part, in an aquarium, turtle tank, aquarium, polydarium, whatever, we don't have outside pollutants. So the main thing we have to worry about when it comes to water quality is ammonia. Ammonia is a large killer of fish. It can cause problems for your turtles as well. It can cause shell rot, stinky water, which is not good anyway. It's really the main toxin when we talk about aquarium water quality that we're trying to manage. And so I've got this kind of diagram here that talks about it. So like you've got a fish, you can apply a turtle to this, a frog, whatever animal, but they eat and consume food and then poop it out in the form of waste, and that creates ammonia. They also, when they breathe, fish can kind of cause ammonia, but it's more from the fish side than the reptile side. So basically when they poop, for the most part, it creates ammonia. And so the actual poop isn't the issue. The ammonia that is created from the poop is the issue. And so ammonia in a normal, like in the wild, in a healthy ecosystem, would get processed by bacteria into nitrate or nitrites, which then are processed into nitrates, which are then removed through water changes or plants, or in the wild it would be through plants. And so the way that we're trying to manage this is first of all convert ammonia into nitrates, and then basically remove that. And I'm not an expert on this. I will say that starting, but I know like a baseline in order to be able to manage this. So basically what we're trying to get is ammonia into nitrates. That's the final version, is to get it into nitrates, which then can be safely removed. And I was saying earlier that ammonia kills fish, and then can cause issues with your turtles or your frogs or whatever. But it also nitrites and nitrites and nitrates can also cause issues. They're just less toxic than ammonia. So how do we manage this? And I'll stop sharing here so we can just talk. But there's a couple of ways of filtration. So you've got mechanical, you've got biological, and then you've got chemical. If you think about this from a normal hang on the back aquarium, you pull water up through into the hang on back. Normally the standard ones come with a like a filter floss material. It's like that white flossy material. And then usually you put carbon inside. So that flossy material for the most part is mechanical filtration. So it's actually taking out waste from, or not taking it out, but taking waste from the aquarium and catching it. And then there's some level of biological filtration there, where the actual bacteria would feed on the ammonia and the nitrites and turn it into nitrates. And then the carbon inside of there is the chemical filtration. So that's removing impurities in the water. So things like tannins, if you've got like really acidic water, it'll take tannins out, which may be beneficial or may be non-beneficial depending on the goal of the aquarium. And then also things like chlorine, carbon will take out. If you're trying to use any medications for your fish, carbon will take out, things like that. So those basic aquarium filters that hang on the backs, there's not a ton of biological filtration.
Right.
And the basis for this discussion is biological filtration, because that is the most important part of this. You can have wonderful water quality and still have a lot of waste product in it. That mechanical filtration, when it's pulling the waste out, it's not removing it from the water column. It's still in the water. The water actually now has to go through the waste. So it's actually, forcing the water to go through more waste, putting more ammonia into the water column. So mechanical filtration, I call it it's like the beautification of the water. It's for your eyes only. And there's some benefits to it as well, but it's mostly for your eyes only. So the biological filtration, if you think about a filter that would have like ceramic rings or something like that in there, the bacteria actually lives inside of these, like a porous rock. So like lava rock, the ceramic rings, sponges, even things like that. So it'll colonize these surfaces, these porous surfaces, live inside of it, and then filter the water and convert ammonia into nitrates and nitrites. So that's the main cycle of a filter. So that biological piece is really the most important part, and the part I focus on. I use mechanical, but I don't do anything with chemical filtration, like carbon or anything like that. I don't even use it. The carbon can also take ammonia out of the water. I forgot to mention that. I should mention that, but it'll become saturated with it very quickly. So you need to replace carbon very regularly. So with all that being said, biological filtration is huge. And Brenden, you and I talked about this when you were setting up the Danio tank upstairs, about adding some of these ceramic items in there. Have you noticed a difference at all with that since you've added them?
Yeah, man, it's actually kind of crazy.
Really?
Like, yeah. So I used and I was just trying to pull it up here so I could kind of show. It's probably gonna be backwards, but like I bought these off Amazon, the Biomax from Fluval, like the little, I don't know if they're ceramic or what exactly they are. I think they're ceramic, right? The rings.
Yep.
Dude, I don't know if it's just like coincidence or whatever. It's probably, I mean, obviously it's not. Like I put them in the filter and I filled it, and like plant growth has been through the roof since then. Like I'm assuming since the bacteria is like colonized in there, the plant growth has been crazy. I mean, that's like mostly my gauge, obviously, is like plants, and plants are your friend in an aquarium. They help me out a lot. I keep I have pothos in there. I have a monstera in there that's growing like crazy. I have another monstera next to it that's got an aerial root that like worked its way into the aquarium, and that thing has like grown leaves like crazy. Like it would grow a leaf once every few months before. Now it's just like going nuts. So yeah, man. I mean, they obviously help.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have that conversation, I would have never even put them in there because I didn't know anything about them at the time.
Yeah. And I wanted to pull this back up because this is important for what you're saying about the plants. So once the biological media has done its job and the bacteria has converted this ammonia into nitrates and nitrites, Plants can consume nitrates.
Right.
That's what they're feeding on in the wild, whether it's a terrestrial plant or an aquatic plant. What they're eating, what like fertilizer, is nitrates. That's what it is. And so we've got this step here in this diagram that we're using as a reference: is buildup of excess nitrate is removed through water changes. But you know what else removes nitrates from the water? Is plants.
Those plants do.
That's why when Brenden was saying earlier that he doesn't have to do water changes, is because it's twofold. It's because he has enough beneficial bacteria growing within his aquarium to convert the ammonia and nitrates into nitrate, or ammonia and nitrites into nitrates. Mm-hmm. And then secondarily, the plants are consuming the nitrates.
Yeah.
So it's like a two-step approach that allows you to filter and not have to do water changes. So that's why plants are super beneficial. More so on the side of like they reduce the amount of work you have to do, but water changes themselves, which is huge.
Yeah,
the water changes themselves like also aren't that hard if you're doing them effectively,
right,
or efficiently. And I'll go into that here in a second as well, about how to do an effective water change. But like for me on my aquarium, so I've got a 55-gallon aquarium in my bedroom that I was talking about where the tetras have bred. I have 3 turtles in there, relatively large turtles. They're probably all over 4 inches. Turtles, especially when you feed them in the tank, create a ton of waste and a ton of ammonia. And all I have on there is a hang-on back filter. It's a Fluval Aqua Clear, which is a really good filter that I've got a sponge, I've got a pre-filter sponge, and then biological media. Sponges are great because sponges act as both a mechanical filter and then a biological filter, because the bacteria can colonize the sponge a lot easier than like something like the filter floss material that would be on a standard hang-on back filter.
Yeah.
So sponges are great, and then tons of that ceramic media like you were talking about. And then I also have a air-powered sponge filter in the corner. But I think about this now because growing up, I had these crazy canister filters on my turtle aquariums, and I would still get issues with shell rot. And I was like, I don't understand why this is happening. It's because I only had like that filter floss material inside of these filters. So all they were doing was just catching all the waste, and the ammonia was just going through there. Like it was right. There was no process there. So being able to set up this aquarium, only have the 2 filters on it, which are, not large filters. They're not insane filters, cheap filters even. But just stocking them with the right media is the huge advantage there. And then also I do religious every 2-week water changes.
Right.
The way I get away with it is, or the way I force myself into doing it, because I think water changes can be one of those things that you can kind of put off, is my aquarium loses water. So I have to fill it up anyway.
Yep.
And the way I fill it up is the same way I would do a water change. So I might as well just do a water change. And I use a system called a Python hose. And so it hooks up to your sink. You unscrew your, like, what would that be called? Like the aeration thing on a sink. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
the little screen.
Yeah. So you unscrew that, and then you can screw on your hose with this Python tube system. And then you turn on the water, and it flows through there and creates a siphon, drains the water. You close it the other way, and then it fills the water. So it's like super simple. Takes 20 minutes, very easy to do. And I have to do it because that's the only way I can fill up my tank.
Yeah.
So that forces me into doing it. But, water changes every 2 weeks. That's not very much time. 20 minutes every 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's not bad.
How long do you spend cleaning snake water bowls?
Longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
And I don't even have that many snakes.
Yeah. That's why, like, when people talk about like turtles or fish or whatever being so much work, it's like, not really. Like that's the extent of my maintenance.
And turtles get a bad rap for being nasty animals. Like, I feel like that's like the biggest thing of why people don't keep turtles. But do they, a lot of waste? Yes, obviously. But if you take the time to research, set it up properly,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously you have a ton of turtles and you work a full-time job and you have a girlfriend that you know, you have a life, you have things that you do, and your tubs are immaculate. So, I
Yep.
mean, you know, you set them up right, you do your water changes, and you're good.
Yep.
They don't stink, you know, if you stay on top of your shit.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So,
that's the key. Is if you stay on top of it, they don't smell. And we say staying on top of it, but like we're talking about, we do water changes on snakes every week where we're cleaning bowls and stuff like that. Like we have to do that every week anyway. And if for
yeah.
some reason this like mentality of water changes and like taking care of an aquarium seems so much more complicated, but that's
Mhm.
what we're trying to do, is explain these like core tenets, and then you can apply it.
Yeah. And for the record, like, I'm very caveman in my approach with these tanks, by the way. I have the cheapest hang-on filters that I could get off Amazon. I use like the hand pump siphon into a bucket still. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm I'm kind of spoiled with the RO system in the gecko room for the beta tank. I can just pull the hose over and fill it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but the tank upstairs, I have to fill gallon jugs and like take them upstairs, put them in, come back down, you know. So it's more work.
Yeah.
But like I said, I don't do water changes on the Danio tank. I just top it off as the water evaporates.
Yeah.
And I don't do water changes on the beta tank either, to be honest.
Yeah. Just top
I
it off.
just yeah, I just top it off and it's,
Yeah.
you know, the RO water helps, I feel, you know.
Yeah.
There's not any because here in central Illinois, we have, or at least in my town, our water is very, very hard, like very hard.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I was just using tap water and it just wrecked the glass, it wrecked the tanks, like it just wouldn't do well.
Yeah.
And I didn't know enough to know why, you know. But
Yeah.
since like the RO system transferring to RO water, it's night and day, dude.
Yeah. And that's something too that can definitely make it harder, is like your local water
Yeah.
conditions, for sure. Like my water is, I don't think it's hard. I think it might actually, I haven't tested it. I probably should test it just for an experiment, but I have no hard water stains at all on this fish tank up
Yeah.
there at all, which is actually, I haven't thought about until just now, because I used to get hard water stains all the time, like at my parents' house growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I have good water here, but I've never thought about that until now. But that can definitely make it harder. But also, like honestly, like hard water, um, especially for fish, can make it harder. But for turtles, it doesn't really matter,
Right.
as long as it's not super super hard.
Yeah.
Um, but it's more of just an aesthetic thing, and you can scrape hard water off too with a razor blade. So,
Yeah.
um, but it definitely can be annoying, and it can also, the other side to it, I guess, that I wasn't thinking about when I was just talking, is that hard water can kind of cause some algae blooms, and different bacteria.
Absolutely.
So there's
Yeah.
that side of it as well. And algae is a whole separate topic, which we got to have a fish tank person on at some point
I would
anyway.
love to because
Yeah.
I wanted I another thing. I have so many ideas and plans, dude. I need like another job to pay for all this shit. But I want to do a big tank down here
Yeah,
somewhere.
you should.
Um yeah, I want to do like a whole Malaysian. I think we talked about it not on the podcast, but I want to do like a whole Malaysian uh like aquascape biotope type
Yeah,
deal down here
you
somewhere.
should.
So yeah, I'd love to talk to some like actual fish guys who do this
Yeah.
on like a larger scale and get their input on that stuff too. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I think you setting that up would be awesome. I think that'd be
Yeah.
so cool, especially with the way you do your fish tanks. And I would love to be able to do this. I do it on one of my turtle tanks. It's a musk turtle. I've got live plants, house plants in there. But
Mhm.
turtles can be painful for plants, especially when they're turtles that eat plants,
Right.
because they will wreck your plants very quickly.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like with specific turtles, like musk turtles and like Indian spotted turtles and You could probably get away with it with like map turtles, but anything that's more carnivorous, like you can definitely get away with plants. The thing you have to watch out for is just them trampling the plants, which can be problematic. But like in my tank up here, I would love to do plants in it, but I've got 3 turtles that primarily eat plants,
Yeah.
and so they would just consume anything I put in there. But like the way you do your setups, and if you know the tank you're going to do is just fish, like you could definitely do all your plants in there, and then it's like the same amount of maintenance that you're doing now,
Yeah.
which is minimal. You know,
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
that'd be sick. That'd be sick.
Yeah, I've had thoughts of like trying to do like a, because I mean I try to go as crazy as I can with what I can, what I have and what I can work with,
Mm-hmm.
but to do like a, like build up a rock like waterfall into the tank with just like all Malaysian native like house plants, just like a full jungle like on this wall over here or
Yeah.
something. I think it'd be fucking sick. But I was gonna ask on the turtle thing.
Yeah.
I've mentioned the pond on here a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is eastern box turtles, right? Is like the goal for this pond. Like I want to build like an outdoor turtle pen, basically.
Yeah.
With filtration on a pond, how different is it like compared to, because obviously in aquariums indoors it's
Yeah.
temperature controlled technically. How does that differ from like aquarium to a pond?
Yeah. And I honestly prefer talking about it in a pond sense because pond filters are so much simpler, just equipment wise, than aquarium filters. Because aquariums, you have these fancy hang on the backs or fancy canisters or whatever, and pond
Right.
filtration is so much simpler. Like they take it down to like the very root thing. So we'll talk about that, and I want to talk about that right now. I want to clarify something for anyone listening. Brendan's not talking about just keeping the box turtles in a pond. He's talking about an entire
Yeah,
pen.
no. Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
build like an actual outdoor like turtle. Like I want to do like legit zoo setup type
yeah,
turtle, Camp Cannon style turtle enclosure outdoors.
yeah.
Yeah. They're
Which is
not
going to be
just gonna
sick.
be in a pond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is going to be sick. I just wanted to clarify that because
No,
I
yeah,
didn't want
absolutely.
somebody to think like that. Brendan's just you're just putting
And
box turtles in the
again, hold
water.
on, let me clarify. I plan on getting proper permits because keeping Illinois natives at your house is highly illegal without them.
Yep.
I have already talked to the proper channels. I have it all planned out. It's going to be completely legal, just to
Yeah.
clarify.
Just yeah.
No one come after me.
And two, with my experience with eastern box turtles, they definitely love water. My female that I have currently spends a ton of time in the water, and I think people. It's funny with box turtles, like you either get like the side where it's like, oh, it's a turtle, put it in the water, or
Yeah,
you get like, oh, it's a box turtle, it only lives on land, don't give it any water, like, or don't give it like a pond. But mine
yeah,
love the water. I think the key is just making sure that they have easy ways to get in and out. But back to the filtration.
yes,
So with ponds, there's 3 kind of ways that people filter ponds, 2 largely accepted ways. And if anyone's interested in doing more research on this, Aquascape as a company has a ton of channels out there. Ed the Pond Professor and the Pond Guy Greg Woodstock. They have a ton of videos out there on this, and I highly recommend you guys go watch that. And honestly, those videos have really changed the way I approach aquarium filtration too, because at the end of the day, it's all filtration. Everything we just talked about as the core tenants are important. That's the
yeah,
key, and that's what you're thinking about as you're designing filtration. But the way they take it right is you have your water coming from a source, and we'll talk about the source in a second. It's coming down into the pond, whether it's going through a stream or it's just water falling straight into the pond. More natural version is more of like a tiered waterfall that's coming into
yeah,
the pond and not very high. A lot of people tend to go really high with a waterfall, but if you can kind of have it babble down, it's better.
I
And
like a
it's
good babble.
yeah, a babbling brook.
Yeah,
We love that. But it's better honestly for the filtration too, because as it's coming down the creek or like the stream that you've kind of got before it goes into the pond, every rock it touches will be completely colonized with that beneficial bacteria that we were talking about. Fully colonized. They love rock surfaces, so it'll as it's coming down this creek, it's being filtered by the water, just like it would be in the wild. So it comes down the creek or whatever, it goes into the pond, and then they have like a skimmer box where it takes the water out of the top. And that's key because with a pond, especially where you are, you want to keep that deeper layer separate from the top layer. And so you want to be the water that is going into your waterfall, you want to be coming from the top layer. A lot of people just put a pump down at the bottom of their pond. And the reason that that's not good is because all that water down there at the bottom of the pond is being insulated and warmed by the earth. Because it's below the frost line, ideally. And so that water is warmer than the surface water. So if you have a pump down at the bottom, you're pumping all that warm water up, and then it's coming down to the top. So you're not letting that warm water sit where it's supposed to be warm, and so you could basically freeze the whole pond that way. So that's first key, is that it's got to come from the top. The other thing too with a skimmer is you're taking all the detritus, so like any leaves or anything that fall into the pond, you're skimming out of there, and then it gets caught in a net almost in the skimmer that it catches all the leaves, and then you can empty that net accordingly. So then from there it goes into a pump. So you get basically the skimmer box is also a pump vault. So the water flows into there, gets skimmed, all the detritus taken out, goes into a pump, and then the pump will pump the water into whatever filter that you've got. So I'll talk about the one that's not generally accepted first, and then I'll talk about the other two. So the one that's not generally accepted still works, but it's not like the best, especially for large ponds, is it's kind of like a canister style. So it's basically like a bucket that you would fill with media. Water pumps in an inlet, goes through all the media, pumps out the other side. Very simple. It works. It's just hard to use that for a very large pond. So that's one that I don't think, like, I wouldn't personally use that. The other two, you've got a waterfall filter, which is there are a couple of companies that make it. No one makes it as good as Aquascape. But basically what happens is the water gets pumped into this waterfall box. Basically, it's like a I'll look it up so somebody who doesn't know can see it. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Brenden.
I think that's what I have, actually. So I bought a kit. Last summer when I was planning on doing this pond, and obviously I've yet to do so.
What did you buy? Aquascape kit, or was it?
So at the time, I did not have the money to spend on an Aquascape kit. I do now, of course, but I didn't then. So no, it's not. Unfortunately, not an Aquascape kit. I don't believe.
Either way, like whatever it is, works. Here's a good example. So I'll share this. It's all really the same product. Aquascape is just, their brand name.
Yeah, they got the
Okay, so this isn't even Aquascape, but it's the same thing. So basically what happens is the water gets pumped in down here in this bottom area. And this bottom area is called a settling chamber. And so what happens is the water gets pumped in here at an angle down here at the bottom, and then it hits this cone in the middle here, and it circles around the cone and rises up. But as it rises up and circles around the cone, the sediment it drops to the bottom, basically. So that's why they call it a settlement chamber, is because the settlement drops to the bottom. And then it goes through these layers of foam mat. They call it like Metalla mat, really. But in the Aquascape one that I've got, it's just a singular piece of foam, and that's really all you need, but you could have more. And so it goes through there, and it finishes taking out any of those particles, and then it's also a space for beneficial bacteria to grow, and it kind of like smooths out the water as it rises. And then above that, you would put normally what they tell you to use is lava rock. So it it goes up through then a bag full of lava rock, which is further a bunch of biological media, and then it eventually comes out the top and overflows. Here's the whole system. This has a UV clarifier in there, which is really over the top. But then it flows out into your waterfall and your creek or your whatever you've got. So then it's going through more biological filtration, goes back into the water, and then gets skimmed out. So the final piece to this is that in this stream or in this waterfall that you would have, and then along the margins of the water, and then within the water, you would do like plants. And so you would have like lily pads and different semi-aquatic plants that would live around the riparian zones there, that then take out that nitrates that we were talking about earlier. So really what they're doing here is they're creating an entire ecosystem,
right?
Nitrate ammonia cycle that is happening all within this system. And then the pond, because ponds are such a large body of water, really it stabilizes things. And that's the hardest thing about aquariums, is because they're smaller, it's hard to keep things stable. Unless, that's why I've got super deep substrate layers in my aquariums, because beneficial bacteria will live within the substrates and, on any of the rocks in there. But the ponds really help kind of maintain that stability. So that's the waterfall filter.
So if you have one that doesn't have the filter in it, could you just put a bag of lava rock in the bottom and basically do the same thing?
Yes. Like, is yours like this, basically?
So mine's, it's, let me get the name brand. I think it's Simply Ponds is the name brand. If that matters. I don't know if it matters or not, but yeah, so I bought like that kit right there, like the first picture.
This one?
Yeah, but it doesn't come with all that extra shit. It's just the waterfall, the skimmer, the pump, the liner, the geotextile, and the hose, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would just put a ton of lava rock in there, and then I would also just put like a plant, like I don't know what would grow year round for you up there, but like I would put, you could like embed a water plant that could grow out of there.
Yeah.
Maybe some sort of grass or like I use in my bog filter, which we'll talk about here in a second. I use a elephant ear.
Oh yeah. See, I can't grow that year round here though. It's the only thing.
Yeah. Mine dies off in the winter and then it just comes back, like it's coming back now.
So you don't. This is off topic again, but
no, it's good.
So you don't cut it, like you don't have to cut it down or nothing, just dies and comes back?
That's what happened this year. I want to cut it next year, but I cut it like way too late this year, and I think I messed it up a little bit, but it's coming back now, so I think it's
because I want to put, I have a bunch of elephant ear I want to plant around the pond.
Yeah.
But because like the banana trees I have, I just cut them and then mulch them.
Yeah.
And then though I'm hoping they grow back. I haven't, this is the first year I've done it, but I was curious if I could just keep them in the ground year round, cut them, mulch them, and then come spring if they'll grow back up. But I guess it's just something I'm gonna have to try.
Yeah,
it gets cold. It gets cold as fuck here sometimes, dude. It gets like cold.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know much about elephant ear, so I couldn't tell you. But I don't know. You know, Aquascape, their headquarters is in Chicago.
Yeah,
and I haven't like paid a ton of attention to the kinds of plants they use in their ponds up there, but that would be an interesting exercise to go back and see
what they. Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah, because that would definitely survive where you're at because they're colder than you probably.
Oh yeah, Chicago gets way colder because of that lake water.
Yeah,
wind coming off. Well, you know, we went to Shed Aquarium. It was cold as hell.
It was cold. It was only October.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would just grow like a plant out of the top of that. So I would do. Okay. I wouldn't even bag the.
Just throw the lava rock down the bottom.
Yeah, and what I would do honestly is on this tubing when it comes in, I would do like a T valve, and then have an offshoot coming off the back of this where you put in like a, what's that called? Ball valve, and then so that way you can back flush it just in case it gets too much water. Because I do that in my bog filter. Is I use a back flush so I can actually just pump it out or flush it out, so it doesn't get too gross at the bottom, basically, and clog it up.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, but that's what I would do, is just do a T valve off the back of it so you could spray it down. But yeah, I would do lava rock and then put a plant coming out of the top of it.
Cool.
Yep. And then that should be good, especially if you rock. The other thing too with ponds is a lot of times people put their liner in and then they don't put anything over the liner.
Yeah.
But you want to make sure you got your gravel bottom and then you stack your rocks appropriately over the liner so it hides the entire liner. First of all, for UV protection, but then also like the liner itself isn't going to grow beneficial bacteria, but all those rocks in there will 100% grow beneficial bacteria. So that's what I would do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we got lucky and got a shit ton of flagstone from
nice.
Chrissy's grandma had a pond that we kind of disassembled because she no longer could take care of it, and she gave us all the flagstone. And I had like 2. I still have another truckload I have to go pick up. So like I got enough rock to do it nice. I'm not going crazy, obviously. Like if I could, I would, but I think the kit I got's like a 10x10, and then so that plus her grandma's liner, which was like another 10x10. So I could realistically do a 20x20 if I want to.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just going to do a 10x10 and then do a nice like waterfall to stream to the pond.
Yeah. And what I would do honestly is I would use that that other liner, that secondary liner, as like the stream liner, and then just layer it over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think that'd be good. So that's the waterfall filter, and then I'm gonna look up bog filter here really quick so we can talk through this. But this is similar, but it's just a different variation. So here's a good diagram of it. I love how many diagrams there are here for this topic, but that one's blurry. So basically what happened, this one's better. Yeah, so basically what happens is you got your pump, and this would be coming out of the skimmer instead of down at the bottom. But your pump would be coming from the skimmer, would pump in, and then you have like you've got pipes down at the bottom. And realistically, the best way to do this is like corrugated piping that has the holes in it because it's larger. And then you would have like a clean out area here. I've got this on my alligator snapping turtle pond, and basically what I've got is a 50-gallon. Basically, I've got this. Honestly, this is exactly what I've got.
Yeah, that's different waterfall. Exactly
different waterfall thing, but it's got tubes coming out. But I've got basically a PVC pipe that comes in the bottom. The water flows up through a layer of lava rock first, so you would do larger rocks first. Ideally, the way Aquascape does it is they've got these here. They've got these. They call them. I can't remember what they call them, but they're basically like.
Try to remember what they're called, but like those basically big plastic.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, it's like egg crate. Yeah.
Yeah.
That it basically just allows the water to spread out and really get through the whole bog, so you don't have like dead spots or something. And then it goes up through larger rock first. You can see larger rock at the bottom, medium-sized rock, and then gravel up at the top. So I use lava rock at the bottom of mine just because it's really porous and allows a lot of beneficial bacteria to grow. But you could use gravel, whatever. And then my top layer is gravel. So I grow all my plants in there, and that's the main part of the bog filter is you're actually growing plants through the top of it to filter the water. So I take that back. The rocks do the filtration. The plants remove the nitrates at the end. So everything we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, where we talked about the nitrate cycle, that's what's happening here, just on a large scale in a very naturalistic way.
Right.
Which is why, like when I was saying the pond, like talking about it from a pond concept is awesome because it's really simple. Like pond filters are the most simple version of a aquarium filter, honestly. They're just
in my mind, like before knowing, I would assume it was more difficult. Just like as like a layman, I just always thought a pond was more difficult to filter than an aquarium would be.
Yeah, well, like it can be, especially because you have the sun involved, and so
Right.
algae is much worse, and so maintaining that. But that's if you grow enough plants in there, it's you
Kind
don't
of
have
mitigates that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's the
Yeah, it
main
seems simple, man. It seems pretty straightforward, to be honest.
yeah. It really is. I think the technology piece of it in aquariums makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
But that's why, like, I do want to switch to aquariums really quickly because you can apply these same concepts. Like, I've done bog filters in an aquarium. Um, it's on a much smaller scale, but basically, I would pump it up into a container filled with rocks. It would be pumped up from the bottom of that container. There's a bunch of plants inside of the container that once it's gone through the rocks, it hits the plants, and the plants take out all the nitrates. So, um, and I don't think that there's a more effective filter than that. I really
Yeah, I
don't.
mean, it's the most natural too. So, I mean, it obviously works in nature, so it's going to work, you know?
Absolutely. I think we overcomplicate things by trying to do too much manual
Yeah.
intervention, and I think you just need to be able to have a shit ton of biological media, allow that process to take place, and then if you can use plants, and if you can't use plants, do a bunch of water changes, and that's really it. So,
Yeah.
I've got a filter down in Kevin's pond right now where there's a pump at the bottom of his pond. It pumps it up into basically a spray bar, which then goes down over a bunch of lava rock, and then it flows back into his enclosure. And it's slightly different than the best way that we talked about, but it works, and
Yeah.
I don't have to do water changes in that enclosure. So you know, it does its function, and I've got plants in there too, which is why I don't have to do water changes. But
Yeah.
um, at the base level, that's it. I've done filters for my turtle tanks before too, where I have overflows that go into basically they call it a trickle filter. So the
Hmm.
first layer is a mechanical filtration. I used to use when I was in high school and I was super cheap. I used to use fiberglass insulation, or sorry, not fiberglass, but
I was about to
insulation.
say, damn.
No, yeah, but insulation without fiberglass.
Yeah.
So it's just that like puffy material,
Yep.
and it would just filter through that. And then I had a layer underneath it. So that was like the bottom of a bucket that I cut off. And then I drilled a bunch of holes in that, like a ton of holes. The
Hmm.
water would flow through that into the next layer where it was just filled with sponges, like not like your typical sponge, but like a scrub daddy, if you know what a scrub
Yeah.
daddy is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like a ton of those. Or they call them scrubbies then. But just a ton of those. And that was my biological filtration. And then it would go
Mhm.
through that. And that was the other half of the bucket, just with a egg crate zip tied to the bottom. It would go through that, and then it would finish in this tub, basically, where I had my pump, and it pumped it back up to the filter
Yeah.
and or to the aquarium, and that was it. So there's different variations of that, whether it's a trickle filter, whether it's they call it what do they call it, like a jerry filter or something, but you would pump it into the top of a um, your pump would sit in the aquarium, and then you'd pump it up into the top of a bucket, and the bucket's just filled with biological media,
Hmm.
whether it's scrubbies or ceramic rings or lava rock, whatever it is, and then it just flows through down to the bottom, and there's outlet, and it goes back into the aquarium. Simple as.
Super simple. Yeah.
Yeah, I think keeping it simple is the key with filtration, and you can save a lot of money doing that. Like in that filter, I mean, depending on the size of the pump, less than $50
Yeah.
to do the whole filter, and that would be definitely sufficient for something up to like 100 gallons. If you had a
Hmm.
stock tank, 100-gallon stock tank for turtles, a
Yeah.
filter like that, and then you had a drain down at the bottom, you could just drain it out and do a water change, simple as.
Yeah, man. It can be as simple as you want it to be.
Yeah,
I feel like
okay.
like DIY in reptile keeping is like you can go crazy with DIY stuff. But in aquariums, I feel like you can really, really go deep with DIY. And a lot of
Yeah,
people do, you know.
yeah, because there's just so much more equipment you need in a
Yeah.
aquarium, and you can pretty much DIY everything. You could probably DIY a aquarium heater. I wouldn't do it, but you probably could.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure you could.
yeah, like that, like pumps, like lighting, I mean everything. But the thing is too, which is why I wanted to talk about it, is it's all applicable to reptile keeping. You know, like
Yep.
if you're going to do a polydarium for whatever, let's say mangrove cat snakes, right? And you want to have like a bottom water area for them, because that's where they'd be hanging out in trees over water. And you wanted to have a water system down there. Well, you could build your whole filter into the tank. You know, it's like you got a pump down at the bottom. You got a waterfall that it goes into. You could stuff all your filtration media into the waterfall. It flows up, trickles down, and comes back around. And, but that's why I was saying before, like you just have to know the key tenants. Like you have to know like what kind of media is available, the goal of the filter, and I mean the other thing too is gallons per hour. Like you want to be, especially for something like a turtle, the usual rule is 10 times. You're changing over that water 10 times an hour. So if you've got 100 gallons, you need 1,000 gallons an hour.
Yeah.
That's the general rule. You can get away with less, but yeah. So I just wanted to talk about it. I feel like it's a good topic for anyone who's a little bit nervous about water or anything like that. So
yeah, like we said, we plan on going a lot deeper with like someone who really knows, you know, that side of things.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. I'd like to learn more because like I think we all get this way, but you know, I go deep when I get into something, and I feel like it's gonna happen with aquariums at some point. Especially like once I get this pond going, dude, the turtle thing, I'm fucked. You know, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I already know.
Do you know what kind of fish you're gonna do in the pond?
I don't know yet. So I'm probably only gonna be able to go down like 1.5 feet deep, maybe, or so. So it's gonna be pretty. I thought about like doing a heater in there in the wintertime just to keep it from freezing completely.
Yeah, that might not be deep enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I may have to go deeper.
Yeah, because your frost line's probably 3 foot underground.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Just because everything could freeze up and you could fry all your equipment too if it's not deep enough.
Yeah, that is true. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. But
why do you say only 1.5 foot down?
Well, just like without buying a new liner, like a bigger liner.
Oh, for size, you're saying?
Yeah. Because if I go 3 feet down with a 10 by 10 liner, it's just going to be a 3-foot hole. There's going to be like no tier. Like I'm not going to be able to do.
It takes 6 foot of the liner. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to figure that out. But
yeah,
I may just end up buying another or just buying a bigger liner and then doing 3 foot, just even if it's just like a 3x3 area that's 3 foot deep and then tier it up. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I still got to figure all that out. But
yeah, that's the thing too about ponds is like it's so variable depending on where you're at. Because like for me here, I can do 1.5 feet, and like I have a 1.5 foot pond. That's what my box turtle enclosure has. It's not even 1.5 feet. It might be. It's definitely not 1.5 feet. It's a cement mixing tray. So however deep it is, you know, what is that, like maybe 10 inches?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how deep it is. So
damn.
But like it doesn't freeze here. So
right. Yeah, we get cold.
Yeah. I mean it does freeze here, but not like that. The ground doesn't freeze.
So. Right. Yeah. See, I may have to look into going deeper then.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get away with like 1.5 feet, 2 foot maybe. But if I'm gonna do it, I may as well do it right.
Yeah. You don't want to have to take it all out like afterwards if you're unhappy with it. And then
no shit.
That's what they always say on the Aquascape channels is they're like Greg Whitstock always is like, I always say people get 3 ponds. They get their first one and then they want to go bigger and then their second one's still not big enough and they go third.
Yeah.
And the third one's the one that they end up with. And granted, those are like the third one usually, and at least the ones that he's touring are massive ponds that like definitely.
Yeah, they're like the rec pond that Kenan has, or they're
Yeah,
like, yeah,
or
the
just
one they just
very
did.
large ponds. Yeah,
Yeah. That one
Like,
they just did for Shaq is badass, dude.
yeah. That one's like it's $1 million pond easy.
Yeah, obviously. But
Yeah.
we ain't got millions over here, so I'm gonna have to
No.
figure something out.
Yeah. Balling on a budget. Me too, man. When I do mine,
Yeah.
whenever I move, it's gonna be same vibes, but yeah, it's just putting things outside is a whole other. I mean, we could have an episode on keeping animals outside for sure.
Yeah, and I'd love to, because I'd love to do some outdoor, like spring, summer enclosures for the carpets for sure.
Yeah.
'Cause it definitely gets hot enough here to keep carpets outside for at least 3 or 4 months a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think that'd be cool. We could definitely do a whole episode on that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to look into a bigger liner, dude.
Sorry, I feel like I'm the bearer of bad news there.
Oh, that's cool. I'd rather, so I can only go so big in our backyard. Like, we have a
Yeah.
decent sized backyard, like
Yeah.
bigger than I feel like most people have, but this is like the starter learning pond, and then our goal is to eventually buy land and like do a fucking legit like big pond.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you'll
I want to do right by the turtles and stuff. So
yeah, and you'll definitely you'll learn a ton. The first pond I built a pond with my dad in our backyard when I was like in 6th or 7th grade. Um, we got like a DIY starter kit from Aquascape and did a whole thing, and it was awesome, man. Like I was super stoked on it. I learned a ton though. Like I remember I was putting plants around the outside in the mulched area, and I forgot where I laid the pipe, and I right through the pipe. Water started coming out everywhere. I was like, "What do I do?" My
damn.
dad was pissed. He was like, "We got to go fix this now." Ended up being an easy fix, but like um, small stuff like that you don't think about is like, I mean, granted, now I don't think I would have made the same mistake had I been doing this for the
Right.
first time, just because like now I understand things are underground.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking 6th grade, so like I didn't think about it, but like small things like that you learn are just like, you dig it, you put the liner in, then you put all the rocks in, you're like, holy shit, like I've taken up so much space with the rocks
Yeah.
that the pond is significantly smaller. And so just like planning for things like that at a time, or like what I was saying about the waterfall, like the pond we built, the waterfall was super tall. Like we built up this big berm, and then it was like a super tall waterfall, which is like what everyone does, because you think about a waterfall, you want to have some height to it and whatever.
Right.
But if you think about it in nature, like when do you ever see you see tall waterfalls? But it makes sense because it's like this massive, stream or river or whatever. You don't just see like a 2-foot tall waterfall coming from nowhere that has like a perfect, sheet coming off of it. So
yeah,
just things like that you would learn doing it the first time.
I just looked up. Our frost line here is 30 inches.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to go 3 foot at least.
Yeah. At least, yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I'm saving for a bigger liner.
Yeah. But it
well.
something like that though is like good to make sure you do. Otherwise, it's like you're not going to be happy with it when it's done.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't be able to keep fish in it. You wouldn't be able to keep aquatic turtles in it like over winter.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's the shitty part about living where you live, man. You got to move down south.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be difficult to do that now, but
I know.
One day. I'm going to make it down there one day.
Tennessee, at least. Tennessee.
Tennessee is always the goal, man. It's always been the goal, but we'll see how it goes. I might make it there in this lifetime at some point.
Awesome, man. Well, I feel like this is a good episode. We touched on like a lot of different things. I think that definitely some value can come out of this one, and I was loving talking about the herping stuff, and the way you redid your room, which again I'll say again, like I think it looks awesome, man.
Thanks, man.
Great job on that. So yeah, I think next week we got to figure out who our guest is going to be, but we're definitely going to have a guest next week. And so we'll be back with another episode then.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Sky, Jake, and then Harry Claiborne's the guest this week, it looks like. So
Yeah.
good old Harry.
Shout out
I'm
to
gonna have
Flippin' 10.
Yeah, man, I'll check that out. Once we're off
Yeah.
here, I'm gonna finish watching that.
That's exactly what I'm going to do too. So
Yeah, man.
awesome.
But yeah, this was a good episode, dude.
Yeah.
Ton of good information. I definitely learned some things. So
That's good, man.
I learned I need to buy a bigger liner for my pond.
Yeah. It's good stuff though. So I think with that, we mentioned at the beginning of the show, but if you guys are interested in slap stickers or just regular stickers, hit us up and we can get those out to you guys. Just want to say again, really appreciate anyone listening to the show. We see that the views are going up and just appreciate that. So
yeah, and all the money we make from the stickers are gonna go towards like shirts, hats. So it's all going back into the podcast. We're not pocketing any of this money.
Yes.
So it's all just getting recycled back to, shirts, hats, some cool stuff.
Yeah.
So
more stuff for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. This has been episode 8 of Beyond the Terrarium, and can't wait till we're at 100.
Yeah, man, we got a long ways to go for that.
Yeah. We'll get there, though.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
See ya.